All right, so let's start our next Remax Elite Realty Expert Series. And today we have the wonderful Tyanne Whitworth. Thank you for doing this for us, Tyanne.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Paul.
So, Tyanne, if some of you guys may know, some of you may not, Tyanne is a transplant here from the great state of Alabama. I'm not sure if that's where you're originally from, but I guess we'll find out here in just a second. But since Tyanne has moved here, Tyanne has absolutely just crushed it. Her business has been just going up, and it's been so awesome. I'm excited to hear more about her and her business. So, Tyanne, you take it away.
Thank you, Paul. So I thought when I talked to Paul and even Kim, I thought I would start just by sharing my story, and that kind of helps give everybody a little perspective. So I am a native Kentuckian. I was actually born in Louisville and then raised, um, moved around quite a bit, but then we settled in Winchester, Clark County, and I graduated high school there and came to Asbury University for my college and graduated there. Met my husband. We were married. We moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, and lived there for 3 years while he worked on his master's degree at the University of Tennessee. And then we moved to Birmingham, Alabama. My husband works in intercollegiate athletics and has been from University of Tennessee. We went to the Southeastern Conference office, and so we didn't expect to stay in Birmingham a long time. I kept saying, I don't want to move to Alabama. I want to move back to Kentucky. And but we ended up putting roots in Alabama, and I raised both of my children there, and actually had a really large friend group, great support, family kind of away from family because we did not have any family there. And so it was interesting when I first got to Birmingham, since I didn't know anybody. My My background has been business, and back in this will give away my age, but back in the 80s, opportunity for women getting jobs in business wasn't like common. So we had to kind of go into administrative roles and things like that. And so I worked at a law firm, and then I worked at an accounting firm, and just got some really good administrative and business skills. So then when I moved to Birmingham and I didn't know a soul, I was just kind of networking when I first moved there, and would kind of just hit any lead I could find to go and talk to somebody or meet somebody or do anything. And within a couple weeks, I was like bored to tears. I was like, I don't know anybody here. How am I going to meet people? And I went into the leasing office where we rented an apartment. And I was like, do y'all have any kind of job? Like, I just need something to do. I can't just like sit in my apartment. And ended up working there for 5 years. What they needed, I actually had some really good skill sets for. And it was so hilarious when this is the reason I tell this, is such a reminder of who you know and how they perceive you. So I went into that office and they said, yeah, we're kind of needing somebody to do what we were doing, is taking a manual accounting system. This seems absurd these days, and turning it into a online type of thing before internet. So it was just a software package. But in my accounting days, I had helped people with payroll and stuff. And so I knew how to set up things for people so that they could do accounting on a computer. And so I was like, well, yeah, I can do that. But the way I got my interview with the manager was because he was a big University of Tennessee fan. And so when he found out that I had come from University of Tennessee and my husband had worked for the, Big Orange, he was just like fascinated by me. And I think he would have hired me if I had couldn't even add like 2 plus 2. I think he would have hired me. But it was just one of those neat stories. And I was there for 5 years, and got like property management skill. During that time, we had to have a real estate license. So I took the real estate course. This was all before buyer's agency and consumer education. So I'm talking, I think the class was either 15 or 30 hours, and then that was it. Um, But in the state of Alabama, you have to have a real estate license if you deal with contracts, with property contracts. So we dealt with leasing and that kind of thing. So I had to have my real estate license, but I never used it, never thought about selling real estate. Started staying home with my kids after 5 years. After I worked there for 5 years, my son was 2 and my daughter is not even born. So I stayed home, became a fitness instructor because I just love being with people, and and I love fitness, and so I became a fitness instructor and did that for 25 years while I was there in Alabama. And I guess I've been home for 8 or 10 years with my kids, and one of my friends' husband owned a lot of commercial properties, and he was needing some help. Didn't really have anybody helping him, and so he asked if I would help him manage some of his properties and like 10 hours a week. So I was like, sure, I can do that. It's kind of more of a bookkeeping, software package management, and then I would help him with leases and follow up with clients and stuff for him. But then he flipped homes. So he was like, hey, get your real estate license. I said, well, I've had it. I let it go. Um, and so I did get my real estate license, started flipping homes with him. And um, then friends would say, hey, Tyanne, could you show me some houses? Or can you help my cousin who's moving to town? And so I kind of, I wouldn't do a lot of business. It was kind of something I just did a little bit here and there. It wasn't really full time. And I never had anybody like come alongside me and say, here's how you need to do real estate. And so over a period of about 5 or 6 years, I started building this business. And but I wasn't really doing it full time. I was still working for him. I was still, I had my kids, and then I was trying to do real estate. And finally, I got so busy that I looked at my investor and I was like, I cannot help you anymore. I can't do you and me and everything. And so I jumped into real estate full time probably in 2013, I would say. And it was kind of scary. So for those of y'all that have like just taken the jump, I understand. I mean, that it's real scary to me. I was so thankful my husband had a stable job. And so he was the one that fed our family. But real estate was something I really enjoyed. And it was a great way for me to supplement our income. But I was scared to death of straight up commission and having to pay dues every month to an office. And but I just committed it to prayer and thought, if I think I can do this. I think I can do it. I've got a nice little small business, and I'm just going to continue to work it. And so I first went with a Remax office when I decided to go full time. Prior to that, I was with a Whitworth office, which were new to that air market, and I'd gotten a lot of Whitworth clients, so I had a nice little base there. Um, and I went with Remax. I had a coach for about a year, and she would tell me to be doing things, and I would think, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And but I started putting some of those things into practice, and that's when I went full time. But I became a Brian Buffini kind of buff and started using those things for my practice, where I started following up with my clients. And touching base with people and letting people know that I provided a value. I was telling somebody recently, it wasn't so much that I wanted my friends to use me as much as I would just say, you don't have to use me because I know we're just friends, but somebody that might be buying or selling real estate. And so maybe you could refer that, because I would get like cousins of people or aunts and uncles. So that's kind of how I started. And then it got to be where friends would reach out to me on Facebook and say, hey, can you help? My son's going to be buying a house. Could you work with them? And so it was kind of a gradual thing, but over a 5-year period, I built a really nice business. And it was all referral based. I don't do Zillow ads, and I don't do any other advertising really, other than maybe a few Facebook ads, like what Paul has said. Um, or I'll use AdWorks when I do a listing, so then it pops up on things. But it's mainly just staying in touch with my clients, my sphere of influence. And um, there's a couple of, so when my husband decided that we were going to move to Lexington. We had just been in athletics for a long time, and he had been on the road a long time, and he was ready to kind of do something different. Our kids were kind of grown, and it was like, I'd really like to put my energies towards something different. And so Dr. Gray at Asbury University approached him, and we came here. And I was completely open to it because I was so happy to be moving back home. But um, I was walking away from my baby, like you don't realize your sphere becomes who you are and what you identify with. And, I think the year before we moved, or that January before we moved, I made like top 50 in the state of Alabama for our Dixie region. And it was just, I just thought I was on top of the world. I just loved what I did. And I was walking away from something that I had nurtured and loved. But I told him, I was like, I can do this, this will be easy, no piece of cake, I just talk to people. Um, and I will admit, so I moved here, I was still closing transactions in Birmingham for 4 or 5 months. But I got my license here, just had to take the Kentucky state portion. And I don't think I closed anything, but one person that I knew here that knew I was moving here, knew I was a real estate agent before I even had my license, parked with Christy. He was like, I'm going to be listing my house and I want you to list it. And which just I just appreciated so much because I don't even think I knew how to look at the MLS here. Um, and so I parked my license with Christy, and I was like, Christy, I've got a listing appointment this weekend and I don't even know how to work your MLS. There were some tools that I used as a Birmingham agent that also allowed me to kind of continue here. And so I've continued to use those tools. And so I'll explain those as we get going. But so I will say that after I parked my license here, just to let people know, if you are new, you may experience this too. But probably in October, I kind of had like that sinking thing of, I've lost everything. I mean, I've given like everything up. And it just hit me. I'm not a down person, so it only lasted 24 hours. But it was that realization of, okay, I'm starting over, like I'm rebuilding. I'm just rebuilding. It's a step-by-step process. And you don't realize how much your pride comes into play, how much your ego comes into play, and your emotional well-being. I mean, you don't realize what other people pour into you, how much that creates who you become. And so just kind of knowing I'm going to build this up. I'm not one of these that walks into a room and says, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I'm a Remax agent. Is anybody wanting to buy or sell a house? I'm much more subtle, and I'm just so much more of a relationships person. And so that's kind of my story as far as how I got here and what I left. I was selling, I think I was at like maybe my last year there. Halfway through the year, I closed on 3.8 million, and then I left. The year before, I had sold 6. So I think that next year I was planning on selling like 8 million. And so leaving in the middle was kind of a stinker, but it is what it is. And my broker down there was like, look, you can do this again. It's going to take you probably 3 years, but you can build this. So, so that's what I did. Since I've been here, Paul can attest to this. The first year, I mean, that first was just 6 months. I sold nothing. But then that next year, didn't I have 12? I think I set my goal of 12 transactions with Christy. I went into Christy and I said, I'll do 8. And Christy goes, I think you can do 12. And I was like, I don't know how I can do 12. I have no idea. And by the end of the year, I sold 12 homes. And I was like ecstatic because I'd met that goal that I thought was way out there. And so then when we sat down, I set a goal for 2020. And the pandemic hit, and I thought, well, I'm just going to be sitting here. I knew I had a good little pipeline, but I thought it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I exceeded my goal for last year as well. And so a lot of it is putting some things into place, and then a lot of it is just knowing people and and then also just coming from a profession and letting people know that you're a professional and this is your job. Um, so that's kind of how I got here, and that's how I've built my business. I'm hoping for year three to be um, really good. Or, gosh, Paul, is this really? Yeah, one, two. This will be year three. So this is when I really feel like I'll be kind of hitting my stride. But there were a couple of. I was trying to think back from an early time in my business. I really committed to education and really learning my craft, I guess you could say. And so that's probably where I started. And so when I moved here and I rebuilt, I kind of went back to that. Let's just go back to the basics. Um, and I think that's what helped me succeed here, was just going back to some of those basics of how I met different people and how I did that. Um, but that's how I find myself here. And Paul, do you want me to share some other things, or do you want to ask me some questions and I can fill
Yeah,
in?
absolutely. Yeah. And some of that was such great info because some of that I didn't know about you. And and I remember the conversation. Like I remember sitting down with you and Christy, and we kind of went over your goals, and it stood out in my mind. And then it was, and I won't go over the exact numbers, but it was this June. I just happened to be looking through broker metrics, and I saw Tyanne's numbers. I'm like, holy smokes! Like Tyanne is at her goal that she had set for 2020 in June. And I was like, I was so excited. So I called her immediately. I just congratulations. I was so excited for you. Um, so yes, that's incredible that you built this business in Alabama, and it was really cool how you got into it, and then picked it up and moved it to Kentucky. And because of your relationships and your networking, I mean, because they had to have known that you were an agent, because at the moment you landed in Kentucky, they're like, "Hey, I want to sell my home. I want you to sell it." Um, so that's why I love that, because you are an agent. You're not a secret agent. Everyone knows that Tyanne Whitworth is a real estate agent. We do actually have some questions. So let me see here. So I do kind of want to know about how it is that you started building up your clientele here. I know you mentioned that you went sort of back to the education, and you are an absolute student of the game when it comes to real estate. But how did you start with that? Did you start kind of with your husband, with since you know people at work, or was it your relationships you already had with people here in Kentucky? How did you start that process?
Yeah. So I grew up in Winchester, and both of my siblings live in Lexington. And know a lot of people, but it's interesting because they haven't really sent people my way. So, again, don't always count on your family and friends. It's all kind of this little network of things. And um, so the way I met people, I will share this part of it. My When my husband moved here to work at Asbury, he shared his story with a lot of people. And part of his story was, a lot of people, he would say, a lot of people look at me and think I've given up a lot. But he said, really, the person that gave up a lot was my wife, Tyanne. And he would share about, she had this great real estate business, and now she's moved here. And he would just share that. And I would look at him like, I can't believe you're saying all this stuff. So I think that's how some people knew that I was in real estate. And then when they became friends with me on Facebook, and they would see kind of maybe the things I had done in Birmingham, knew that, I was a serious real estate agent. I wasn't just, a part time real estate agent, that it was a business for me. And that, I think, is one of the keys for success, is making sure that your real estate business is a business, and that everything that you do, you're investing in you, which is your business. um, and I think that was the key. So part of it was telling his story, and I think that's how I got that listing. um, but then, God does amazing things. My faith is very important to me. I commit a lot of things to prayer, And when I when I got my license here in Kentucky, I think because I had a presence, I had testimonials online, which I think are huge. And I had a Facebook business page that had, been there. I received 2 leads from Remax agents out of state. They had no clue that I had just moved to Kentucky and was just learning things because I just was my consummate professional. I just am like, I'm going to be a professional. Um, and so those 2 leads allowed me to get my feet under me as far as going out and showing houses, setting up searches for people. And because I was like, I have nothing else to do. So, and what's interesting, one of them ended up not buying here, but the other one did. And we closed, I think, the following April, March or April, but I got them in August. But it was just neat because it was because of my education and my designations. Like I've worked at the CRS, which is the Certified Residential Specialist, and I had my At Home with Diversity, which kind of poured into my CRS designation. And I had been working on my ABR and had an emergency here in Kentucky with my family. So I ended up missing one day of the class. So I couldn't take the test, even though I'd already spent like a whole day. I think the whole next day was only a half of the day. But when you see those designations behind somebody's name, what that tells you is that they have taken the time to educate themselves and build their business. And so for a young agent, I would say it is so worth doing some of those designations. If you're at a downtime in your business, take a class, get a designation, or let it be long term. My CRS took me forever to take because it was based on transactions and volume and education. So it took me years. It was like my one goal I had out there, and I finally got it. And by having it, it gives me, only 3% of the agents in the United States have that designation. I mean, it's they take their business seriously. And when I refer out, I try to refer to fellow CRS agents because I know what they've done for their business.
Well, that kind of leads into a question that Jenny Ray has. She asks, which designation is most important for a newer agent?
Um, I would say the like the ABR, which is accredited buyers represent, I think ABR, accredited buyers representative or something like that. I think is excellent. The other one that I got during my time in Birmingham was my GRI, which is Graduate Realtor Institute. The thing I loved about my Graduate Realtor Institute, it's a big commitment. It's not as big as the CRS, but it plays into the CRS. So all of my designations poured into my CRS, my Certified Residential Specialist. But the GRI, Graduate Realtor Institute, covers buyers, listings, marketing, technology, law, and something else. It seems like there's 6 parts to it. And it just makes you a well-rounded agent. So I would recommend doing that Graduate Realtor Institute, and I would recommend the ABR. There's another one that I think is the SRS. I can't remember what that one is, if it's for sellers representative or something like that. And then pour into that Certified Residential Specialist if you want something that carries some weight to it. But I have an agent friend in Birmingham. He's not a big designation person. So when I say this, I want you to know you don't have to have these designations to be good at what you do. I chose the education side. He really just built his on that Brian Buffini way. And so he does not have all those designations behind his name, but he is a fabulous, like he's in the Diamond Club for Remax. I me's great at what he does.
Well, something you said with part of that was marketing. So you move here and you've got your friend that is listing their house with you, and then you got 2 Remax leads, one's one that panned out. So now your SOI is two. So how do you build from that two? Did you, whether pop buys or, and just so everyone knows, so whenever I first heard someone talking about pop buys, they came in the office and they're like, oh yeah, I took my clients pop buys. And I thought they were saying Popeyes, like the chicken. Like, man, like you're taking all your people Popeyes chicken. And then after a few days, I realized they were saying pop buys. So Tyanne, how did you build from these two in your SOI to where you're at now?
Yeah. Um, Pop buys are definitely something I've done. I'm not great at doing them every month, um, but I do touch my clients every month. Um, I have never used a CRM, which I think one of your questions is something I would regret. I don't know if I regret it, but I, I'm such a personal touch person. I have such a hard time with automation. And yet I do think there are ways to touch clients with automation. But so when you talk about building your sphere of influence, there were a couple things. I started figuring out, okay, like before, I've got friends, I've got former clients, I can get referrals from other agents, um, and then church, and then the third thing, or the fifth thing, I guess, for me was I need to meet some lenders. I need to talk to some people that might send people to me. I mean, we can get leads from so many different places. And so I thought, if I need to find some lenders. So I had coffee with a couple of lenders, and I would kind of use them a little bit. But on one of my Op City leads, this is a hilarious story, because Brittany did the class on Op City a year ago for some of us. And I had been a little bit hesitant, but I kind of jumped. I was starting to figure it out, and Brittany was a huge help. So I think I didn't look at my numbers this morning, but I think last year I closed three, maybe four that were Op City. And so for me, that's a lead source. It may not be where I get everything, but it's a lead source. And so I think it's a good lead source. And but with one of my Op City leads, it was one of those days where I got a guy, wanted to look at a house, showed him the house. How often do they buy the house you show them? Never, but he did. And he started, and note to self, he's sending me his brother this year. So, you build those relationships and then they come back. But he used a lender named Julie Baker with Fifth Third Bank. And so I reached out to her. She reached out to me. Well, all of a sudden I had this voicemail from Julie, and it asked me where I'd grown up. And so when I called her back, she actually grew up in Winchester. We were 2 years apart. She played the violin in my wedding. She came from a family that, our families have known each other forever. And so now Julie and I have this relationship. She sent me somebody last year. I've sent her three people. She's sending me people this year. And so to me, finding a lender that you have a relationship with, she doesn't get all of my leads because I let my people choose whomever they want. But we have a nice little referral thing going. I've got another buyer right now that I just met Sunday that is a source from her. Um, so, I was trying to put my net out as much as possible. And so if you can find a lender, an insurance agent, or somebody like that you can establish a relationship with, that will send you a lead. A financial planner. My guy in Birmingham, before I left Birmingham, my financial planner sent me some of his clients. Here in Lexington, a guy I go to church with is a financial planner, and he sent me somebody. So it's just finding lead sources from other than, Zillow or Opcity. But again, just putting that net out.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to open up to any questions anyone might have. If you want, you can type them in the chat box or just unmute yourself and just fire away. So let's see if anyone has anything here.
And if anybody has questions, what I was going to say about those pop buys Brian Buffini says, it doesn't. I remember my coach telling me I was getting ready to deliver Christmas gifts, and I said, I don't know what to give to people. I don't want to spend $10 per person. I can't afford that. Um, and because I mean, honestly, it all does come down to your bottom line. And if you don't have revenue, then you can't spend. So I remember her words to me, and this was 9 years ago. She said, they just want something of value from you. And it can be anything from a loaf of banana bread, chocolate chip cookies, Chex Mix. It doesn't have to be a big ticket item. And so that's when I started making that white chocolate popcorn that people have loved. And so I started doing that at Christmas time. I think I did Kentucky Christmas cookies one time. I've done different things, but something that I've spent time doing, people tend to really love. Um, when I left Birmingham, one of my gifts that I sent to my clients, because I wasn't there to do a pop by, I took all my photos that I had taken and I sent each one of them a photo um, ornament that I ordered. I think it ended up costing me like maybe $9.99. Um, but then I packaged them in a Christmas bubble wrap thing and sent it to them. And I can't tell you how many people reached out to me for something like that. Just something that shows that you've taken the time and that you really care about them from a personal standpoint.
Well,
Uh,
Jenny Ray had another question, and this kind of is with that. She said, "What?" She asks, "What are some examples of how you touch base with clients?" So, and maybe that's not a pop by.
Um, well, so in January, so I know Kim, our office will do our HUD statement. So every January, my touch is I do an email to all of my clients, and I personalize it and say, I have a personal sentence. There was a recent Inman thing that talked about letter writing and how to do it, and but I do a personal touch. Then the rest of it is pretty much copied and pasted and sent to everybody. But I do mention the house address and everything. So those head statements are one thing. Um, I have not done the flags, but if I see a house in an area that my clients have bought in, I usually will reach out and say, hey, just in case you're wanting to know, this house sold down the street from you. I'll reach out to them on that. Um, I try to follow up with birthdays, whether even if it's just on Facebook. I in the fall, as business when business slows down is when I try to do my pop buys. My broker in Birmingham would do Father's Day. He would do the dad's root beer. For Mother's Day, I had one of my girls here in town. So the people that I listed my first listing with here, she now has a small business. So now she does my cake pops for me for my clients when I close. And then she did my Mother's Day cake pops with a little Gerber daisy. And so I dropped off to all the moms that were on my client list. Um, I haven't done the dads thing, but I think the dad's root beer or a car wash for dads is another great thing. If you could just do little car wash coupons. I just put it in a cellophane, put a ribbon on it, or hang it on their door, and then just snap a picture and say, I dropped off a little treat for you today. Um, when I close with a client, usually I follow up. I put this all on my calendar. I follow up 3 weeks after we close. Then I follow up. I'm sorry, I follow up. Yeah, 3 weeks after we close. Then I follow up 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And so those are my touches with my clients. I kind of take my perspective, and I don't have to get something every month for somebody for me to remember them, but I like a personal touch from people. And so by touching people those times throughout the year, and sometimes it may be just, hey, it's Tyanne, I'm just checking on you. You still loving your house? Did you change? Sometimes they'll say, I've changed jobs or got engaged or whatever it is. And I find that they don't mind hearing from you. And sometimes it's a text message, but try to do a phone call if possible. But that 3 week visit, usually after in that 1 month visit, is when I go and visit them at their house. They want to walk me through and show me what they've done. And I've done that now just in the last week and a half. I've done it with two clients that we closed in December. People love to show you what they do to their home. And, it's just great. And then they sent, like one of them has already sent somebody to me to buy a house. So I think those personal relationships, again, it just goes back to that. For me, I just love that personal relationship.
That's great. I hadn't heard about that, about going back 3 weeks later and letting them kind of show the house. That's really cool.
I love that.
Um, let's see. So I don't see any other questions up here. So I'll ask one final question from myself, and then, like I said, if anyone has any questions, I know we have quite a few brand new agents on here,
Yeah.
so this is
Question.
definitely a great time to ask Tyanne some questions. Did somebody unmute?
Yeah, I have a question. It's me, Missy, Melissa. All right, Tyanne, where do you find those classes for like the GRI and the CRS? Is that something through realtors, or is there just online classes that you got those designations through? Or
Yeah. So in Birmingham, they were offered through CRS is you'll have to get online and look at certified residential specialist. However, they now are realtor. Let's see, now they've got a different name. I still call it CRS because that's what we've been for so long. But certified residential specialist is separate. It's not going to be taught here. They have their own classes. They have their own webinars. And you have to do so many hours in person, and you have to have so many transactions, but you can build to it.
right.
So that one, look up certified residential specialist. And then GRI is going to be offered through our association.
Okay.
I have seen it when we get that LBAR newsletter.
Mhm.
I've seen the GRI in there.
Okay.
There, and the ABR is the same thing. I've registered for it twice since I've moved here, and last year it got moved because of COVID, and I'm hoping to get it maybe this year or next year. Or you can do it online through NAR, National Association of Realtors,
Mhm.
and that way it would just be online.
Okay.
Then At Home with Diversity is one that I think it's offered by our association, but again, our associations only offer these courses maybe once a year,
I
so
got
you
you.
might have to just check on those. And then here in Kentucky, Christy would be able to tell you about, I think Kentucky does like a Kentucky leadership or a Kentucky. Christy is the one to ask about that because I've not taken it, and I think it's maybe similar to GRI, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Thank you so
GRI
much. Okay.
isn't, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think you can actually get that on Remax. I think they actually have a discount for it, maybe.
Maybe this month, I
Yeah.
think, for some of them. And another pop by that I did was that reverse pie pop by, which I had done in Birmingham, and I did it here this past November at our office, where I send out an email in November and ask my clients, hey, I'm willing to provide a pie for you for Thanksgiving. Another one of my agents in Birmingham does it at Christmas time, so it could be either one, but Christmas or Thanksgiving pie. And then I bought my pies at like Sam's or Costco, or you could go to Fresh Market and buy your pies. It's a little bit bigger investment, but it people love it. People love it, and they come and pick up, and it gives me another touch with my clients. And then they'll say something about it online or tell a friend. I mean, so yeah, it's just, again, I love those Popeyes.
That is fantastic. So I've really enjoyed today. So I know I was excited about today. We had at some point 16 or 17 people on here. So I know a lot of people were excited about hearing from you. And it was really cool just kind of getting to hear your backstory a little bit. So that was really cool. So if there's any other questions, let's see. I don't see anything else. Oh, wait, here's one. Hanesi says, thank you, Tyanne. So if no one else has any questions, we will call it there. I've really enjoyed these Remax Elite Realty Expert series. We started off with Brittany, which was fantastic. Then we had Nicole Gardner, which that was just a ton of great information. Now with Tyanne, so we've got some great classes coming up to keep up with this steam that we have going. So I'm very excited and thankful to you, Tyanne, for doing this for us.
You're welcome. And if anybody, always feel free to text or call me. I get ideas from other agents, and then I like getting ideas from agents in our office too. I think it's all very helpful. But yeah, you're welcome.
Everyone is saying thank you, Tyanne. So we really appreciate you doing this for us. And I have definitely learned a lot, and I believe this has been fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate everything you do for us, because you help me more with the marketing side of things, which, you know, I don't always like to put myself out there, but it's a good thing.
You do fantastic. All right, we are going to end it there. Thank you, everybody, so much for showing up. This will be on our Facebook group page, hopefully by the end of the day. And yeah, we'll just see you for our next Remax Realty Expert Series. That's a lot to say at once. All right, see you guys.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tyanne.
Thanks, Kim. Hope y'all enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye.